Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of Alabama, and then in 1981, President Reagan appointed him to be the United States Attorney for that district, and he served in that position for 12 years. General Sessions was elected Alabama Attorney General in 1995, serving as the state's chief legal officer until 1996 when he entered the United States Senate, where he remained until he became the United States Attorney General. So we're very happy to have him here. We're very honored and privileged. And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, the United States Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow, thank you. Please, it's good to be with you. Thank you so much. It's good to be in Philadelphia. We were just discussing our deputy, Rod Rosenstein's from this area, Wharton School, a business graduate. You know, the deputy sort of runs the Department of Justice, so you guys better watch out. He knows how, he's been trained in how to read numbers, you know, that kind of thing. He's a really a good guy. And Rachel Brand is our associate, and she's, they're the only two of our 12 to be confirmed that have gotten through the Senate, but hopefully we'll get the rest of them start moving fast, and it'll help us. It is a great honor for me, really a surprising opportunity for me at this point in my life to serve as your Attorney General. I do my best every day to be faithful to the laws and the Constitution of this United States and to fulfill the goals that the President and I share. We want to reduce crime in America. We want to affirm local and state and law enforcement officers in the dangerous and important work they do every day. And we want to defend this country from international crime and things of that kind. He sent us 3 executive orders on those 3 subjects: support local police, crack down on international, transnational criminal organizations, and to simply reduce crime in America. So it's been going up a bit here, and we'll talk about it. So, Lou, thank you for your hospitality, your 20 years of service to the Department of Justice, and so many of your team that are here that I got to have a few minutes with earlier. They've dedicated their lives to good law enforcement, and we need to affirm what they've done. But law enforcement is indeed a tough job, and right now it seems to be getting tougher. Starting in the early 1990s, the crime rate came down steadily across our country until just a couple of years ago. Now violent crime is once again on the rise in many parts of America, indeed most of America. The murder rate has surged nearly 11% nationwide, the largest increase since 1968. In Philadelphia from 2014 to 2015, murders went up nearly 13%, and shooting victims increased by more than 18%. As Lou was telling me, you've got a great health care system here, and many people a few years ago that would have died from these gunshots are being saved today. And this year, preliminary data show that murders are up at a rate of 20% from last year, which will put the murder rate at the highest decade of this decade in the city. Tragically, that number increased just last night when a 36-year-old man in a wheelchair was shot in the head and killed as he entered his home. These numbers are significant, but there are people behind the numbers. Each one of the victims of these crimes indeed had families and friends and neighbors. And you know the stories too well, and we don't need to forget them. Not even 2 months ago, 14-year-old Tamir Frazier from the Kensington neighborhood was on his way to a friend's house to play video games when he was caught in a crossfire, shot, killed, and bled to death in the street. Some 70 people, including a 12-year-old boy, were outside having a barbecue when they witnessed the fatal shooting of this innocent child. One neighbor told reporters, "I'm not surprised. Shootings are going on every day around here." Another neighbor said, it could have been my child. My kids hang out here every day. We can't sit outside without somebody getting killed or getting shot at. Look, this is not acceptable, not in America. We need to be able to have safety, and children need to be able to be outside in any city, any neighborhood in this country. They deserve better. We all deserve better. And it's not a Philadelphia problem alone. It is certainly a national problem. So I call on everyone to remember that it's not our privileged communities too often that suffer the most from violence and crime. Regardless of wealth or race or neighborhood, Americans all have a right and to demand safety. The first and most important job of government, and any government, is to protect the safety and rights of its citizens. If we fail in this task, then every government initiative loses its importance. Schools are less effective. Fewer businesses succeed. Fewer grocery stores will set up in a neighborhood, punishing poor people who can't have access to food and groceries. And home values plummet. Good, decent people find their home values decline instead of increase as a result of crime. So as law enforcement officials, we have the responsibility to stop, and our goal is to reverse the rise in crime in our country. And under President Trump's direction, this department is committed to doing its part. To that end, I have directed our federal prosecutors to work closely with law enforcement partners at the federal, state, and local levels and take violent crime off our streets and reduce it. We know, all of us in law enforcement need to understand fully, and I think we do, that 85% of the law officers in this country are our state and local law officers. One of the great foundational reasons for the decline in crime over the last 30 years has been increase in numbers in our police departments and increase in the quality and performance of our local police. We want to continue to advance that. And you can know, as Attorney General of the United States, I understand it, I support you, and will continue to support you in that effort. I did have an opportunity to be present with the President. A number of state and local law enforcement officers were there. One was from Philadelphia, who told a story I've heard all over the country, and I had not thought about it. And he said they had approved a large number of people for hiring in the Philadelphia Police Department, and when they sent out the notices to say, you've been approved, a substantial number, I think he said less than half, accepted. We don't need to create a situation in which our police departments are not seen as fabulous places to go to work. We don't need to do anything in our efforts in this country that demeans or undermines the respect we have for the men and women who serve us. We need the best people there. They need to see it as the kind of positive career path that they would enjoy and would undertake. And you can know I have that as a top priority of mine. So our goal is to dismantle transnational criminal organizations, drug traffickers, and gangs that bring violence and death to communities like Philadelphia. This department is especially focused on eradicating the threat posed by MS-13. Their motto is to kill, rape, control. And that is what they do every day. It's amazing how violent they are. They recruit new members in our schools, our high schools, our middle schools, and even elementary schools. And as a result of these recruitment efforts, it's estimated that MS-13 now has 10,000 gang members across the 40 United States in this country. And the more they recruit, the more damage they do. This gang is a threat here in Philadelphia, as it is in Northern Virginia and in Maryland and New York. In recent months, 4 MS-13 gang members have been arrested in Pennsylvania in connection with the brutal murder of 21-year-old Cristina Rivas and of 15-year-old Damaris Reyes Rivas. But we have a motto too, and our motto is that justice for criminals and justice for victims and consequences for criminals. And we will eradicate this threat. It will not be easy, but I have complete faith in our prosecutors and our law enforcement officers at every level. MS-13 days are numbered. But that will require us all to work together to take MS-13 off the streets. We're going to need the cooperation of law officers on the streets to identify them first, federal capabilities that are interstate, even international. Working in teams together, we can do this, I am certain. Unfortunately, however, and as we built so many teams and partnerships and task forces around this country, this growing cooperation has been impeded by policies of certain states, cities, and counties. Some jurisdictions in this country refuse to cooperate with the federal government when it comes to immigration authorities to turn over illegal aliens who commit crimes, even MS-13 members. These policies are often called sanctuary policies, but they are giving sanctuary not to law-abiding citizens of our communities. They are providing sanctuaries to criminals. It saddens me to say that one of those jurisdictions is Philadelphia. This is especially sad for the residents of Philadelphia who've been victimized as a result of these policies. It's right and just, really, that we have a lawful system of immigration, and one that we can defend and that makes sense. So, some of the things that have happened include the young victim of an illegal alien who was released from local custody here in Philadelphia. He had been previously deported and re-entered this country and was slated to be removed by ICE officers in 2015, but the policies here prevented police from honoring ICE's detainer for him. He was released, and in August of last year, he was charged with raping a child. And then there was Jose Palermo Ramirez, who had been convicted of sexually assaulting a 7-year-old girl. Because of these policies, officials were not allowed to turn him over for deportation. This just isn't right. I recently met with a number of families who had loved ones killed by illegal aliens. I met one man from California, Juan Pena, whose 14-year-old daughter, Christy, was raped, murdered, and left in a field. Christy was not the first American girl this man had alleged to have raped and murdered. Neither was she the second. This man was arrested, released, and went back and forth from Mexico twice before Christy Sue was killed. She should have been alive today. Now, I want to be clear about this. Local police, I know, totally are supportive and want to work together on so many of these issues. And I know that you want to help. The problem often are the policies that tie your hands. And that makes all citizens, and especially our police on the streets, less safe. Now, most cities and states do not have sanctuary policies because the vast majority of American people are opposed to them. According to one poll, 80% of the public believes that cities should turn over illegal aliens to federal immigration officers. So I urge the city of Philadelphia and every sanctuary city to reconsider carefully the harm they are doing to their residents by refusing to cooperate with federal law enforcement, to rethink these policies. Let's see if we can't get on the same path. And we've had some good meetings with a number of cities in that regard. If we're going to stop the rise of violent crime, let's work together. The American people want and deserve a lawful system of immigration that keeps us safe and that serves our national interest. This expectation is fair, it's reasonable, it's moral, and it's just. People come to our country by permission. They apply to come here. They are not allowed to come without permission. That's an unlawful entry. And if they commit a crime while they're in here, my goodness, what right do they have to demand that they not be deported? It's just common sense. American people have spoken, in my opinion, and we're going to do what we can in the Department of Justice, working with the Homeland Security, to try to reestablish integrity in this system and protect the American people's legitimate interest. Lastly, we know that drugs and crime do go hand in hand. Some may not think so, but those of us in law enforcement have seen it for many, many years. Drug trafficking is an inherently violent business. If you want to collect a drug debt, you can't file a lawsuit for it. It's collected by the barrel of a gun. And drug trafficking kills. And as you know well, more than 50,000 people in this country in 2015 died of drug overdoses. Most of those opioid overdoses. It's beyond anything we have ever seen. And preliminary numbers indicate that 2016 will hit 60,000 overdose deaths. These numbers are beyond automobile accidents. They're beyond the deaths that we counted when the AIDS epidemic reached its highest level. And we need to understand something serious is happening. When you have these drugs like fentanyl that have so much power, we're seeing heroin with such a greater purity than it was in previous years, in addition to a lot of the prescription drugs that are being abused in such a dramatic way. This is a cause for deaths. I think that we as a nation have a duty to respond to it, and we can. We've responded to drug epidemics before, and we've changed trends in this country, and I'm absolutely confident that we can do that again. Last week, the Department of Justice announced the indictments of over 400 defendants as part of the annual healthcare fraud takedown. 121 of those, 120, involved opioid-related drug fraud, and nearly 50 were doctors. Some of these frauds involved massive amounts of drugs. And yesterday we announced the seizure and takedown of Alpha Bay, the largest dark net marketplace takedown in world history. Indeed, this Alpha Bay dark network in which people sell drugs, pornography, child pornography, false IDs, and other, and especially drugs, have grown in popularity. This was by far the largest one in the world. It's responsible for countless synthetic opioid overdoses, including the tragic death of a 13-year-old in Utah. So this was a big breakthrough. These people thought they had a secret capability using bitcoins and other techniques to avoid accountability, become rich on dealing death in our neighborhoods, and they have been dismantled. This group is gone. And the head person was arrested in Thailand and committed suicide a few days later. So we're going to continue to work these cases. I believe that the prescription drug problem that creates a lot of the heroin addiction in America, that is a winnable war. I don't believe there are that many doctors and medical personnel and pharmacies that are involved in distribution of these drugs. If we work together, from what you in local law enforcement see and the intel you gather, and using our DEA and their computer data to identify outliers who prescribe so much of this drug, I am convinced that we can turn the tide on prescription drug abuse, and that will be a contribution to the health and safety of our country. Here's the point. The Department of Justice will not concede a single block or street corner in the United States to lawlessness or crime. We will work to strengthen our partnerships. We understand fully the immense leadership and importance of state and local law enforcement. We want you to succeed. We want your officers motivated, proud, with high morale, not being demeaned and otherwise undermined in their efforts. and you are ultimately the most effective resources we have as a country in this effort. So it's a tough job, but it's an important job. Thank you for doing it, and I want you to be successful. Many of you are working in the same neighborhoods you grew up in. You know what is at stake. You know people who've been victims. You know the safety and peace of mind that these citizens deserve are up to us. But you can know this. You can know that those of us, you have the thanks of the men and women of the Department of Justice, and we will always have your back. Thank you. God bless you and your efforts. Thank you.
Thanks very much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.